File compression. So any file that you're making on a computer, in theory, is raw because it has no file type attached to it. So if you're writing a document in Word, even though you're in Word, it's still a raw file. When you're editing something in Photoshop, it's a raw file until you apply a file type to it. So when you save that Word document as a Word file, it becomes a .wrd file, or it becomes a .psd file. So they label the file with a certain type of software. In image editing, we try to keep the file as big as possible. So the theory behind this is you've got to be able to share files. Okay, so it's either you've got to be able to store them or share them. They're the two main things. So if we're going to share them, it's going to be across the internet. If we're going to store them, it's going to be on our computer. So if we send them across the internet, we'll come to that in a minute. And if we're going to store them, we've got to have space to store them, because space is like our currency in a computer. So there's two types of compression. You've got lossless and lossy. In lossless, let's take an image for example. You've got the original size. You compress it, so you use a mathematical algorithm for look for patterns basically in the file, so that you can cut shortcuts and make it smaller. Then when you restore it, when you uncompress that, when you unzip it, it goes back to the original size. With lossy, you've got your original size, you compress it, and when you restore it, you can never fully restore it to the original file size. So it's a trade-off. Do you always need to be able to make the file, the same size as it was? And no, you don't need to. So why? We've talked about this. The two main areas are storage and the internet. First of all, if we're going to share this, we're going to have to email it to someone. Okay, so email may have a limit on what you can send file size. If you're uploading something, that's going to cost you time and money to upload it. If you're downloading, the same applies. Think about your usage on your phones. If you're downloading something, you've only got so much usage a month. So if you download a massive movie, then that's going to use up all your data allowance. So 4G, for example, is faster speeds, and YouTube by default will download a YouTube video if 4G is enabled in 4G mode instead of 3G, which will use up all your data. So if you compress the video, you make it smaller, you can still see it, you can still see the finished products, but it's not as rich in data. If you're storing things on your phone, for example, a CD can hold roughly about 20, maybe 18 songs on average. Well, that's not really good enough. Now we have mobile phones that can store thousands of songs. So by compressing that music type, so it's not the same as when the artists were in the studio recording it. It's not like the raw file with all the thousands of tracks on it. It's a compressed version. It's like an MP3, for example. So it's compressed. So the quality is not 100%. Let's say it's about 70%. But to our ears, it doesn't really matter. And it's a trade-off about how many songs we can store on our phone. Storage on a hard drive. The more space you have on a hard drive, the more money it costs you. So if we can compress it, we can use smaller hard drives, keeping costs down. Blu-rays, a good example of a compression method. So Blu-ray, you can get more data on a Blu-ray disc than you can on a DVD disc. But do you need to compress it that much? You've got to think about, do you need to compress it and why? Does it matter if the end product is lossy or lossless? So an exam style question then. So that a video can be sent over the internet, it needs to be compressed. Describe two benefits of compressing a file. So you select two from, it's smaller, so it means it will take up less hardware space, saving costs and access times. Okay, so it's 2 points, so you've got to say why. So because it's smaller, it takes up less space on our hard drive. That will save us costs, because we haven't got to buy a bigger hard drive, and access times. We're not searching through the whole of that hard drive to find that file. It's smaller, is faster to upload. So specifically to the internet, if it's a smaller file, you can upload it to the internet faster. And smaller is faster to download. So you can think about your mobile phones when you download an image. It's faster if it's smaller.